A colossal orc swings its massive wooden club through the dense forest air. Marin ducks under the lethal blow with mere inches to spare. He counters instantly by driving his short blade deep into the beast's exposed torso. The orc roars in agony as black blood splatters across the green moss. Marin twists the handle of his weapon to maximize the internal damage. With a thunderous crash, the massive green monster collapses onto the damp earth. Marin leans on his knees, panting heavily while wiping sweat from his forehead. His companion Imitar steps forward from behind a tree, holding a glowing holy staff. Imitar scans the area frantically to ensure no other monsters are lurking nearby. Instead of resting, Marin pulls out a large heavy butcher knife from his pack. Imitar watches in bewilderment as the warrior begins slicing into the orc's flank. Marin carves out a thick marbled slab of prime meat from the monster. Imitar covers his mouth as a wave of nausea hits him from the raw stench. Marin gathers dry twigs and quickly builds a makeshift campfire on the dirt. He sparks a flint, instantly igniting a warm, crackling orange flame. A portable iron cooking pot is produced and filled with clean water from a canteen. Marin unrolls a small pouch filled with various wild herbs and pungent spices. Imitar realizes with absolute dread that Marin intends to cook the monster meat. Eating monsters is considered the ultimate taboo among civilized human society. Marin ignores the taboo entirely as he drops the large chunks into the boiling broth. A surprisingly rich and delicious aroma begins to drift through the forest clearing. Imitar's stomach twitches involuntarily as the appetizing scent hits his nostrils. Marin stirs the dark stew with a carved wooden spoon, watching the meat tenderize. He ladles a massive portion of the stew into a simple wooden bowl. Marin takes a huge bite of the cooked orc meat without a moment of hesitation. The meat melts in his mouth, bursting with savory flavors and rich juices. Suddenly, a transparent blue status window materializes directly in front of his eyes. Text scrolls rapidly across the screen, announcing the absorption of a new essence. A bright flash of crimson energy surges from his core through his veins. Marin feels a massive surge of raw physical strength flowing into his muscles. The system confirms that his basic muscle density has increased by 5%. Imitar falls backward onto the grass, completely paralyzed by fear at the sight. Marin looks down at his remaining party members with an intense, burning gaze. He extends the wooden ladle toward Imitar, offering him a taste of the stew. Imitar violently shakes his head, refusing to participate in the blasphemous feast. Marin shrugs his shoulders and gladly finishes the entire pot by himself. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, feeling completely revitalized. His mind shifts toward his ultimate goal of slaying the legendary dragon that ruined his life. Every monster he consumes brings him one step closer to that impossible vengeance. Suddenly, a loud snap of a twig echoes from the darkness beyond their camp. Imitar whimpers softly, gripping his holy staff as a pair of glowing red eyes appears in the bushes. A massive corrupted shadow moves slowly toward them, radiating an overwhelming aura of pure malice. The massive corrupted shadow loomed directly over Marin, radiating an overwhelming aura of pure suffocating malice. His companions shrank back in absolute terror, gripping their weapons with trembling, sweat-slicked hands. Marin merely narrowed his eyes, adjusting his grip on his heavy iron blade as the creature lunged forward. With one swift, brutal downward slash, he sliced completely through the core of the shadow, dispersing it into black smoke. The immediate danger had passed, but the long journey ahead required a reliable method of transportation. A short distance down the main trail, a stranded caravan appeared with several broken wooden carriage wheels. Desperate merchants were pacing frantically around their damaged cargo, whispering anxiously about nearby monster territories. Marin approached the group slowly, a calculating smile forming on his face as he evaluated their dire situation. The head merchant turned quickly, his eyes lighting up with a sudden spark of desperate hope upon seeing an armed warrior. He explained that they were transporting valuable guild supplies but were completely defenseless against the local forest beasts. Marin offered to guarantee their safe passage through the territory, but only in exchange for a seat on their fastest carriage. Having no other choice, the merchant eagerly agreed to the terms, sealing the profitable bargain with a firm handshake. The journey to the capital proceeded smoothly, with Marin silently observing the changing landscape from the rooftop of the moving wagon. Within a few hours, the massive stone walls of the Adventurer Guild headquarters loomed majestically ahead. Marin stepped down from the carriage and walked directly into the grand entrance hall, which was buzzing with elite warriors. At the center of the hall stood Dalia, surrounded by an admiring crowd celebrating her recent flawless archery record. She openly mocked the human recruits, claiming their clumsy swordplay could never match the natural grace of elven accuracy. Marin listened to her boasts with a quiet chuckle, stepping forward through the crowd to challenge her claims directly. Dalia glared at him intensely, her green eyes narrowing at the sheer audacity of this rugged, low-rank human warrior. Marin proposed a public duel at the official testing grounds to see if her skill truly matched her massive pride. Accepting the challenge instantly, Dalia led the growing crowd out into the massive sand-covered outdoor testing grounds. The guild master stepped forward to act as the official referee, outlining the rules of the combat trial. The two opponents stood exactly 30 paces apart, waiting anxiously for the signal to draw their weapons. The moment the whistle blew, Dalia instantly drew 3 arrows at once, notches resting firmly against her glowing bowstring. She released the string, sending the lethal projectiles streaking through the air with a deafening high-pitched whistle. Marin didn't even flinch, sidestepping the first 2 arrows by mere fractions of an inch with effortless precision. He raised his heavy iron sword to deflect the 3rd arrow, sending it spinning into the dirt with a loud metallic clang. Dalia's eyes widened in utter disbelief as she realized her ultimate signature opening attack had failed completely. The crowd erupted into wild cheers, stunned by the raw reaction speed of the seemingly ordinary human warrior. Refusing to back down, Dalia quickly leaped backward, chanting a complex elven spell to manifest a massive magical array. A barrage of dozens of translucent wind arrows formed instantly in the air, aiming straight for Marin's chest. Marin focused his mind, activating a newly acquired physical reinforcement passive skill he had absorbed from his previous monster meals. He charged directly into the oncoming magical storm, sprinting forward with terrifying explosive speed. Wind arrows slammed violently against his reinforced armor, creating a succession of loud, booming explosions across the field. Emerging completely unscathed from the thick cloud of smoke, Marin appeared directly in front of a horrified Dalia. He stopped his heavy blade mere millimeters away from her slender throat, the sheer wind pressure ruffling her hair. The entire testing ground fell into an absolute dead silence as the guild members stared open-mouthed at the result. Dalia dropped her bow to the ground, her face flushing bright red with a mixture of intense shame and burning anger. Marin lowered his weapon and smiled casually, stating that she would make an excellent asset for his next dangerous guild quest. Just as the guild master prepared to declare Marin the winner, an urgent, blood-stained messenger burst through the arena gates. The panicked messenger screamed that a forbidden high-rank curse had just sealed the nearby Dark Manor quest line. A strange dark purple crest suddenly materialized on the back of Marin's hand, glowing with an ancient toxic energy. The dark purple crest on Marin's hand pulsed with an eerie light as he stepped toward the Adventurers Guild bulletin board. Dalia crossed her arms and scoffed loudly, clearly unimpressed by his strange new mark. Marin ignored her attitude and pointed directly at a high-paying quest request pinned to the wooden board. The flyer detailed an urgent request to investigate an abandoned dark manor overrun by vile, toxic creatures. Marin grinned widely at the prospect of finding new exotic monster ingredients to cook. Dalia sighed in resignation, knowing she had no choice but to follow her eccentric partner. The duo packed their gear and departed the bustling city before the sun fully set. A dense, suffocating fog rolled across the landscape as they approached the isolated estate. The dark manor loomed before them like a decaying giant, its broken windows resembling hollow eyes. Dalia drew her elegant bow and notched a glowing magical arrow, scanning the perimeter. Marin drew his heavy steel sword and kicked the rotting wooden front doors wide open. A shower of dust and splinters rained down into the pitch-black foyer. Sudden, high-pitched cackling echoed from the shadows high up on the ceiling. A swarm of ugly purple-skinned gremlins dropped down from the rafters with claws extended. Marin swung his massive blade in a wide arc, cleanly slicing through the first wave of attackers. Dalia loosed a rapid succession of mana arrows piercing multiple gremlins mid-air with lethal accuracy. The remaining gremlins grew enraged, their bodies secreting a foul-smelling neon green slime. One larger gremlin blindsided Marin, driving its venomous claws deep into his right shoulder. Marin grunted in agony as the potent toxin instantly entered his bloodstream. Dalia screamed his name, desperately trying to clear the path toward him. With a surge of raw adrenaline, Marin grabbed the attacking gremlin by its throat and slammed it into the floor. He crushed the creature's skull with a single downward strike of his heavy iron hilt. The battle concluded, but Marin collapsed to his knees, gasping heavily for breath. Black veins began spreading rapidly from his shoulder up toward his pale face. Dalia rushed over and began chanting a standard detoxification spell, but her magic fizzled out uselessly. She realized with dread that this specific gremlin venom was far too potent for common healing magic to cure. Marin's system analyzed the toxin, and a mental notification flashed before his fading vision. The system indicated that the only antidote was the raw, untainted liver of the gremlin leader. Coughing up dark fluid, Marin dragged himself toward the corpse of the large gremlin he just killed. Dalia watched in complete speechless horror as Marin plunged a hunting knife into the monster's belly. With a wet squelch, Marin extracted a pulsating dark purple organ from the creature's carcass. Without hesitating for a single second, he jammed the raw, toxic liver straight into his mouth. Dalia gagged loudly, unable to comprehend his insane taboo culinary survival methods. As Marin chewed and swallowed, a violent burning sensation erupted throughout his entire torso. The pure toxicity of the liver fought aggressively against the poison already inside his veins. Slowly, the dark veins on his neck began to recede, replaced by a soothing warm aura. A majestic golden system window materialized in front of him, chiming with a successful notification sound. The notification confirmed that Marin had successfully unlocked a passive skill called Intermediate Venom Resistance. Marin wiped his bloody mouth with the back of his hand and let out a long, satisfied breath. Dalia stared at him like he was an absolute freak of nature, completely terrified of his raw power. Marin stood up, stretched his newly healed arms, and flashed her a casual, carefree grin. He remarked that monster liver actually tasted quite exquisite when paired with the right amount of fear. Suddenly, the entire manor began to violently tremble as a massive tremor shook the foundation. Deep within the depths of the mansion's basement, an incredibly heavy, ominous footsteps began to echo. A colossal glowing crimson eye suddenly peered through a wide crack in the basement hatch, locking its gaze directly onto Marin. The colossal crimson eye staring from the basement hatch sent a visible shiver down Dalia's spine. Marin instantly tightened his grip on his blade, stepping forward to shield his trembling elven companion. With a fierce battle cry, Marin drove his glowing sword directly through the wooden hatch to strike the subterranean beast. A horrific screeching wail echoed from the darkness below as dark purple monster blood sprayed across the stone tiles. The monstrous eye slowly faded into the shadows, signaling that the hidden threat had finally retreated. Dalia collapsed onto her knees, panting heavily while trying to process the absolute chaos of the manor quest. Marin wiped his blood-stained blade on a rag, completely unfazed by the terrifying close encounter. He knew that to face even greater threats like the legendary dragon, he needed to significantly accelerate his power growth. The next morning, Marin led his reluctant party into the deepest sectors of the misty outer wetlands. Rumors spoke of a deadly creature inhabiting these bogs known widely to hunters as the poisonous cattle blowpass. Marin's eyes gleamed with anticipation as he spotted the massive bloated silhouette shifting through the murky water. Dalia vehemently warned him against fighting it, pointing out that even a single scratch from its toxic skin meant certain death. Ignoring her frantic protests, Marin unsheathed his heavy iron cleaver and dashed straight toward the lumbering beast. The cattle blowpass roared in anger, violently shaking its massive body and spraying toxic secretions everywhere. Marin deftly dodged a heavy slam from the monster's front hoof, sliding beneath its massive belly. With a swift upward swing, he sliced deep into the creature's soft underbelly, releasing a torrent of dark fluids. A stray drop of the highly acidic monster slime splashed directly onto Marin's bare forearm, burning his flesh instantly. Gritting his teeth through the intense burning sensation, Marin delivered a final decisive strike to the monster's neck. The colossal cattle blowpass collapsed into the swamp water with a heavy thud, finally defeated. Dalia approached slowly, covering her nose from the horrific pungent stench radiating from the carcass. Marin immediately pulled out his cooking knife, looking at the toxic meat as if it were a rare prized delicacy. She screamed in absolute horror when she realized Marin actually intended to harvest and consume the lethal meat. He carefully extracted a dense purple-veined steak from the cleanest portion of the creature's flank. Setting up a small portable stove, Marin began searing the toxic steak, causing a strange, sweet-smelling vapor to rise. Without hesitation, Marin took a massive bite of the cooked monster meat, chewing it with genuine relish. Instantly, an overwhelming wave of agonizing pain coursed through his entire nervous system as the remaining toxins reacted. Dalia rushed forward to help, reaching for a healing potion, but Marin raised his hand to stop her. He needed his body to naturally process and conquer the poison to unlock the ultimate hidden skill. Suddenly, a glowing blue status window materialized in front of his eyes, flickering with ancient text. The system announced that he had successfully unlocked a rare, permanent pain tolerance skill due to his extreme survival. The immense agony receded instantly, replaced by a wave of revitalizing warmth that filled his enhanced muscles. A few days later, the party arrived at a grand opulent estate housing a prestigious noble culinary workshop. The head chef of the workshop, an elegant man in pristine white attire, looked down his nose at Marin's rugged appearance. Marin casually challenged the elite chefs, claiming he could prepare a dish far superior to their standard royal cuisine. The aristocratic kitchen staff gasped in horror as Marin pulled out rare, dangerous parts of the cattle blowpass. With incredible precision, Marin began slicing, marinating and neutralizing the meat using secret wilderness techniques. An absolutely mesmerizing, rich aroma began to fill the massive hall, forcing the skeptical chefs to salivate against their will. The head chef hesitantly took a small bite, and his arrogant expression instantly shattered into pure, ecstatic disbelief. The entire workshop erupted into cheers, declaring Marin an absolute genius who had revolutionized the world of gourmet cooking. With his stomach full, his powers vastly multiplied, and a loyal party by his side, Marin looked toward the horizon, fully prepared to hunt the dragon next.